The night is heavy with fog, the kind that swallows sound and bends light. At 2:17 a.m., deep inside the control tower of Northview International Airport, a lonely radar screen flickers awake. Green light sweeps across the circular glass, steady and rhythmic until a single dot appears. One small blip moving steadily eastward. Flight 7113. No one should see that call sign again. 12 years ago, that same flight vanished over the Atlantic with 189 souls aboard. No wreckage was ever found, no emergency call, only a final burst of static that ended mid-sentence. The case was closed, the loss accepted, the sea declared their grave. Yet tonight the machine insists they are flying once more. A low hum fills the room as ancient computers strain to process the impossible. The air feels colder. Monitors glow pale green against the concrete walls, dust motes drifting through the light like slow snow. On a shelf nearby, an old framed photo shows the original crew, 3 smiling pilots posing beside the same aircraft before its last journey. Their eyes seem to follow the radar's movement. Outside, wind howls across the empty runway. Grass grows through cracks in the asphalt. The airfield was decommissioned years ago. Only this single tower remains operational, maintained automatically by remote systems that should have stayed offline. Yet tonight, every system has powered on by itself, as if waiting for someone or something. The radar signal strengthens. Altitude, 35,000 feet. Speed, 470 knots. Flight path, identical to the original route toward London. Every detail matches perfectly. The machine beeps softly, as though greeting an old friend returned from a long absence. 12 years earlier, that night had also begun with storms. Sheets of rain had slammed against the control tower, windows while lightning crawled. Like veins across the sky, Flight 713 had lifted from runway 26, climbing into thunderclouds that swallowed its lights whole. At 2:17 a.m., the last radio burst came, a distorted tone followed by silence. Search ships scoured the coordinates for weeks, finding only floating luggage and a single torn seatbelt. Then nothing. The ocean, vast and unforgiving, erased every trace. Back in the present, the tower's automated recorder clicks on. A faint sound crackles through the speakers. Static first, then a breath. Slow, uneven, human, but no voice answers. The frequency used is the same one assigned to Flight 713 on its final night. A maintenance engineer checks the console remotely. No live connection exists to any current air traffic network. This tower's radar hasn't been online since 2013. Still, the display updates in real time. Fuel levels, airspeed, even cabin pressure, all transmitting as if from an intact aircraft. The data scrolls endlessly across the screen, whispering of life where none should. Hours pass. The blip follows its old corridor above the Atlantic. Then, precisely at 3:11 a.m., it pauses. For 6 seconds, the dot hovers motionless, before beginning a slow descent, mirroring the same pattern logged on the final flight data record 12 years ago. The resemblance is exact, down to the altitude loss per second. It is not a replay, it is repetition. Investigators reopen archived files. In the black box transcript, hidden beneath the static of the last minutes, a faint whisper can be heard, 3 syllables, still here. At the time, experts called it interference. Now, the timing matches perfectly with tonight's reappearance. Security cameras inside the tower record something stranger still. At the instant the radar comes alive, the temperature drops by 5 degrees. A draft stirs papers from long-abandoned desks. For a moment, the lens captures a reflection on the glass, the outline of a man's face wearing a pilot's cap. When lightning flashes outside, the reflection vanishes. News of the anomaly spreads quietly through aviation circles. Some dismiss it as a technical glitch, a ghost signal bouncing from old satellites. Others know that the Northview systems were fully disconnected from orbit years ago. Whatever is transmitting, this data is not coming from space. It's coming from the air above the Atlantic. At dawn, a drone team is dispatched to the coordinates of the moving signal. The sky is bruised with storm clouds. Lightning forks through mist as the drone climbs higher, instruments struggling to stabilize in the turbulence. Then, through the haze, its thermal camera detects a shape. Metallic, massive, cold. No heat signatures, no working engines. But the outline is unmistakable. Twin wings, fuselage intact. tail marked faintly with the numbers 7 or 13. Before the operators can focus, static floods the video feed. A burst of white light blinds the camera. The signal cuts, leaving only a single frozen frame, blurred, spectral but undeniable. A plane flying where no plane exists. Back at Northview, the radar blip vanishes. The room falls silent except for the wind whistling through cracked windows. For a full minute, nothing moves. Then, one final alert beeps softly. The same flight number reappears, but this time, the coordinates place it directly above the airport itself. Altitude dropping. Outside, thunder rolls like distant engines. The ground trembles slightly, though the sky shows nothing but dark clouds. And then, faintly, beneath the storm's roar, comes a sound, a long, fading whine, like turbines spinning down after a landing that never happened. A shadow glides across the wet runway. Lights flicker in the tower. Monitors surge with static. The radar screen freezes on one final reading. Flight 7113, approach complete. The hum stops. Power cuts out entirely. In the darkness, the faint glow of the radar lingers for a few seconds more, pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat. Then it too dies. The camera drifts upward into the night sky through clouds thick as smoke. A flash of lightning illuminates an enormous silhouette. A passenger jet adrift in darkness. Windows shattered, metal corroded by years of salt and ice. Yet inside, faint lights still flicker along the aisle. Shadows shift between the seats, moving as if passengers still wait for landing clearance. Thunder crashes. Everything fades to black. Only the distant echo of an old radio transmission remains. Radar contact, Flight 713 returning to base. The morning after the signal, the world wakes to rumors. A single photograph leaked from the control tower. A radar screen pulsing with the name Flight 713. Airline archives confirm the code was retired years ago, permanently locked in memory. Yet the timestamp reads only hours old. Within days, a quiet task force forms under aviation security. No press, no announcement. 3 people are assigned to investigate: Officer Mitchell, the last controller to see the flight; Dr. Elara Voss, a radar physicist; and Daniel Hargreaves, an engineer who helped build Northview's system. They call themselves Echo Unit 9. The team arrives at the abandoned tower on a gray afternoon. Fog clings low over the runway, the same direction Flight 713 once vanished into. Inside, everything remains untouched. Dust on the consoles, papers yellowed by time, but the radar screen is spotless, humming faintly like something alive. The system should have no power source, yet its pulse continues, steady and rhythmic. Elara begins scanning for nearby transmitters. Nothing. The tower is cut from the grid, its antennas rusted through. Still, the console reacts to her presence. When she approaches, the brightness intensifies, casting her shadow long across the wall. It's as if the machine recognizes her. Mitchell watches silently, remembering the night he heard the breathing through static. He feels it again now, the same heaviness in the air, like being watched from above. Outside, a faint wind moves across the field, carrying the smell of burnt fuel. But the runway has been unused for over a decade. By sunset, the radar begins to flicker. The green sweep turns erratic, freezing for seconds before jumping forward. Then, without warning, the screen flashes. Flight 713, inbound. Altitude 24,000 feet. Descent rate steady. The investigators stare, frozen. No civilian radar anywhere else in the region reports a flight. No engine noise fills the sky. But Northview's radar shows it clearly returning. Elara records the data feed. Daniel tries tracing the coordinates. The signal moves west across the coastline over open sea. When he overlays the path with historical records, something strange appears. The route matches. The flight's original pattern from 12 years ago, moment by moment, even time by time. It's not random, it's repeating history. Mitchell activates the old frequency one last time, his voice trembling. Only static answers. But deep within the noise, Elara filters the spectrogram. Beneath the white hiss lies something rhythmic. Not speech, not mechanical. A heartbeat. Faint, distant, human. Night falls fast over the tower. Rain begins to fall the same way it did that night. Lightning flashes across the horizon. And in the split-second brightness, the outline of a plane seems to shimmer above the clouds. Too silent, too still. Inside, the team continues their analysis. Elara notices something else in the transmission logs. Each time the radar activates, a new data packet appears, encrypted with an old code that hasn't been used since 2013, the very year the crash investigation ended. When decoded, the packets reveal fragments of the original flight manifest, passenger names, seat numbers, even boarding times. But one entry didn't exist in the original list, seat 17A, name unknown. Mitchell scrolls back through archived records. 17A was empty on departure. The seat had been unbooked. So who or what is transmitting from it now? Around 2 a.m., the radar emits a sudden high-pitched tone. Elara steps closer, heart racing. The sweep freezes again, then slowly begins forming an image. Not a map, not coordinates. A shape, the faint outline of a hand pressed against glass. Every monitor in the room flickers, the lights dim to red emergency glow. Daniel grabs his thermal scanner and points it toward the radar. The reading drops below freezing. Condensation forms on the console surface, like frost spreading from within. And then they hear it, the low hum of engines overhead. Mitchell rushes to the window, scanning the sky. Nothing visible, only clouds glowing faintly from lightning inside them. But the hum grows louder, circling like something searching for a place to land. For a brief moment, an invisible pressure fills the room, bending air like the moment before thunder strikes. Then silence. The radar goes dark. In the morning, emergency teams arrive after the tower's power surge triggers alarms across the network. They find no trace of Elara's equipment, only frost-covered consoles and 3 sets of footprints leading out onto the runway. 2 return. 1 does not. Mitchell and Daniel are found unconscious near the edge of the tarmac. Both survive, but they remember nothing after 2:15 a.m. The last video frame from their cameras shows Elara walking toward the center of the runway, looking upward, rain streaking down her face. Behind her, a faint glow in the clouds shaped like a descending aircraft. When officials review radar logs from other stations, all confirm clear skies that night. No planes in the vicinity, no anomalies, no signals. Only the Northview system recorded Flight 713 for exactly 7 minutes before shutting down again. Days later, the tower is sealed permanently. Equipment removed, power lines cut. But Mitchell can't let it go. He dreams of static and distant breathing, of a voice repeating the same phrase through the fog, seat 17A. One night, unable to sleep, he drives back to the airfield. The gates are locked, but the faint green glow still flickers inside the tower window. Impossible. Since there's no power, he steps closer, rain soaking his coat. Through the glass, he sees the radar alive once more. A single blip moving slowly across the screen. The label reads, Flight 713, final approach. Thunder rumbles overhead. Mitchell lifts his eyes to the sky. For a fraction of a second, lightning ignites the clouds. And there it is. A plane suspended in the air. Rusted wings spread, windows cracked, glowing faintly from within. And in one of them, a figure sits motionless, hand pressed against the glass. Seat number 17A. The light fades. The sky empties. Only rain remains, falling softly over the runway where no plane has landed for 12 long years. Night falls again over Northview Field. A heavy mist curls across the broken runway, as though the earth itself is breathing. 12 nights have passed since the second sighting. The control tower stands silent, powerless, sealed, forgotten. Yet somewhere deep inside its dark frame, a faint green pulse begins to beat once more. 02:17 a.m. At the same moment, Officer Mitchell wakes in his apartment miles away. Rain hits the window exactly like it did that first night. He looks at his alarm clock, 2:17. Static crackles from his old radio, a channel that hasn't worked in years. Through the noise, one word forms, return. He knows he shouldn't, but something pulls him back. The same pull that draws every lost thing toward its origin. By the time he reaches the airfield, the clouds above are glowing faintly green, like radar light bleeding into the sky. Inside the sealed tower, the monitors awaken on their own. Files open and close, coordinates rewrite themselves. Across every screen appears the same entry. Flight 713, active. Time, 02:17. Mitchell steps into the control room. The air feels charged, like walking through a thunderstorm made of memory. He sets down his flashlight. Its beam flickers, bends, and dies. Only the radar's glow remains, painting the room in slow circles of light. The sweep pauses, then moves backward. For the first time, the radar rewinds itself, replaying data from 12 years ago. Cloud patterns, wind direction, altitude every second reconstructs. In reverse until it reaches the night of the crash. When the data stops, the console displays a new field. Temporal signal locked. Mitchell realizes it isn't showing a flight path. It's showing a moment in time. The radar isn't tracking flight. 713's location. It's reliving its final minutes. At the government lab, Dr. Elara Voss's recovered laptop is analyzed. Its last entry records a strange reading from the night she vanished. An electromagnetic pulse shaped exactly like a heartbeat, repeating every 12 hours. Scientists find the frequency identical to that of cosmic radiation, spikes measured in the upper atmosphere, energy dense enough to distort time for fractions of a second. They call it the echo field. And somehow Flight 713 had flown straight into it. According to data, the aircraft never crashed. It became trapped, folded between minutes, looping endlessly through the same storm, the same descent, the same unfinished flight. 12 years for the world below, but for those inside, perhaps only seconds. Back at the tower, Mitchell watches as the radar loop begins to move again, forward this time. Altitude drops, speed fluctuates. Every number matches the final flight log. He realizes the system isn't predicting. It's synchronizing. Flight 713 is about to complete its loop, right above him. Wind howls across the field. Fog spins like smoke rising from invisible engines. Lightning ignites the horizon, and through it, the silhouette of the plane materializes, broken, burned, yet whole. Its lights flicker as if caught between life and memory. Mitchell opens the tower radio, not to speak, but to listen. Through the static comes layered sound, voices overlapping. Passengers praying, alarms wailing, pilots shouting coordinates that don't exist. And beneath it all, a calm, steady voice repeating a single line every few seconds. Approach complete. Reinitializing loop. The voice belongs to Elara. Her tone is emotionless, mechanical, as if transmitted from within the aircraft itself. On the radar, the plane's cabin layout appears, each seat lighting one by one. All are dark except 17A. A single pulse beats there, slow and steady. Mitchell zooms the feed. The thermal reading matches human. Life, but temperature fluctuates between freezing and normal, switching each second. Half here, half elsewhere. A person trapped between realities. As the plane lowers, a violent wind blasts through the broken windows of the tower. Papers scatter, alarms scream. The radar flashes one final warning. Temporal collision imminent. The building shakes. For a split second, the night splits too, one side storming, the other utterly still. Mitchell sees two versions of the same sky overlapping, one filled with the burning wreck of Flight 713 descending, the other clear and empty. Between them, a thin green horizon of static light, the edge of the loop. He steps forward. Lightning engulfs everything. For a heartbeat, he sees inside the aircraft. Rows of passengers frozen mid-motion, eyes open, mouths locked in silent screams. And in seat 17A sits Elara, staring out the cracked window, her hand pressed to the glass, watching him. Then the light collapses. Sound implodes. The plane vanishes, leaving only a roaring vacuum that sucks the air from the tower. Mitchell falls to the floor as the radar explodes in sparks and darkness. When emergency teams arrive at dawn, they find the tower partially burned, the radar melted into glass. Mitchell lies unconscious beside it, frost covering his hands. Doctors revive him hours later. His first words are a whisper, "Seat 17A." Data recovered from the system shows one final transmission, sent at 02:17 a.m. The file contains only coordinates, far, out over the Atlantic, and a single voice repeating softly, "Loop reset. Next cycle in 12 years." Experts mark the location on a map. There is nothing there but endless water. Yet satellites above that region detect a faint, electromagnetic surge every night at the same minute. 02:17 a.m., followed by a distant echo that sounds almost like engines. Camera drifts high above the ocean. Thunder rolls in slow motion. Rain cuts like silver threads across the dark waves. A single flash of lightning ignites the clouds, and there it is again. Flight 713, Frozen mid-descent, wings trembling, lights flickering in endless replay. Inside, shadows move, as if still alive, caught between one heartbeat and the next. The narrator's tone fades to a whisper. Some flights never land. Some storms never end. And somewhere above the Atlantic, Flight 714 is still trying to come home. The storm begins exactly 12 years, 12 days, and 12 hours after Flight 713's disappearance. Radar stations from Iceland to Canada detect the same impossible signal. Flight 713, inbound, altitude 12,000 feet, time 02:17 a.m. Controllers freeze. That flight number hasn't existed in over a decade. But across every radar, one faint green pulse moves steadily toward land, as if the dead are returning home. At Northview Hospital, Officer Mitchell opens his eyes for the first time since his collapse. For 12 days he's been unconscious, trapped in fevered dreams of lightning and whispers. Now, machines beside him flicker with strange readings, electromagnetic frequencies, matching Flight 713's last transmission. He hears her voice, Elara's, distant and broken through static. A single word echoes in his mind. Help. Something inside him knows the truth. The loop is collapsing. The flight that never landed is trying one last time. Rain slashes across the old airfield. The abandoned control tower hums to life, lights flickering in perfect rhythm with the thunder. Inside, the radar screen glows bright green, spinning unevenly, skipping seconds, rewriting itself. Then the pulse steadies. Altitude drops. Speed stabilizes. Mitchell watches in disbelief as the impossible happens. Flight 713 emerges from the storm, silent, fractured, half-real. Its edges flicker like broken film. The nose glows faintly from inside. It looks both alive and dead, caught between one world and the next. Inside the cockpit, pilots sit frozen mid-motion, faces pale, controls locked. Cabin lights flicker on and off. Passengers remain trapped in the same second of terror, unaging, unmoving. But seat 17A pulses with light. Elara opens her eyes. She's been awake for only a few seconds. But 12 years have passed outside her loop. Through the cracked window, she sees the faint outline of Northview runway below. The storm rages, but for the first time, she feels warmth. The loop is breaking. The end has come. On the ground, Mitchell stands in the wind, rain soaking through his coat. Above him, the plane descends slowly, surrounded by lightning that bends like shattered glass. He looks at the radar. 2 signals appear now. One belongs to the past, the other to now. The aircraft is splitting, its ghost form tearing free from time itself. A sharp blast of light rips through the clouds, forming a shimmering curtain, a doorway between timelines. Through it, Mitchell sees the plane's interior frozen in midair. He sees Elara at seat 17A, her hand pressed to the window, staring at him from another reality. For one suspended heartbeat, the worlds align. The dead and the living share the same sky, but the loop's collapse demands a cost. If the plane breaks free, the time field will implode, consuming everything inside it. If it doesn't, it will reset again, doomed to fly forever. Elara feels it too. Her body flickers between light and shadow. The instruments fail one by one, but she forces the aircraft forward. Below, the runway lights flicker to life, a final beacon through the rain. Altitude, 900 feet. Time, 02:17 a.m. She closes her eyes. Her last thought is not fear, but peace. The engines roar. Lightning swallows the sky. The storm collapses into itself, a single blinding flash that lights the horizon white. Then silence. At dawn, there is no wreckage, only scorched earth where the plane should have touched down. Investigators find a single object embedded in the tarmac, a twisted metal nameplate reading Flight 713. Data from weather satellites shows a burst of radiation, exactly at 02:17 a.m. For one frame of video, the plane appears landing perfectly, then vanishes into thin air. No remains, no black box, no answers. But every night, exactly at 02:17, radar across the coast records a faint pulse above the Atlantic. It lasts only 3 seconds, then fades, leaving silence and the soft echo of distant engines. Mitchell often returns to the airfield. He stands alone in the mist, staring at the sky. Sometimes, faintly, he feels warmth on his hand, as if someone invisible is holding it. He looks up. High above, the storm flickers once. A faint shape passes through the clouds, wings outstretched, lights blinking twice before fading. Flight 713, finally free. Some flights never land. Some souls never stop trying to come home.